Okay guys, so slight change in plans. As you can see, like I did have enough time in order to crank this out. But okay, so right out of the gate, let's talk about the big reveal that comes from this part of the chapter, which is that, yeah, Pudding is back, being held captive by Blackbeard. And honestly, I've got a million questions of how things are going to play out from here, just knowing this, because while it could be signaling Big Mom's return, I think we're looking at more just a return of the Big Mom pirates in general, particularly Katakuri coming in order to help save her. And honestly, I would actually prefer that over Big Mom, because if the Big Mom pirates return, that would kind of also mean that we might possibly get a return of Katakuri as well. And honestly, I would love to see him again for pretty much no other reason than to just see a fight between Katakuri and Blackbeard. Like just the possibility of that with pretty much just the possibility of that happening with pretty much Pudding in Blackbeard's custody now. That just ups the hype levels of what Katakuri versus Blackbeard might look like. And for as epic as that is, this also feels like another case of Oda setting up even more reasons for the Straw Hats to engage with the Blackbeard pirates, given Sanji's history with Pudding. But if Sanji does get involved, it also just raises the question of how this is going to work, given he got his memory wiped clean of any like connection he had with Pudding. Like the only thing I can think is that Sanji will gain those memories if she somehow gets knocked out, or maybe Blackbeard steals her powers. But regardless of what happens next, knowing Oda, just from the fact that he did this at all, have Pudding be captured by Blackbeard, it definitely indicates that he's going the route of making a whole gonna have another whole character arc for Pudding where in some form or fashion, some form or another, Pudding is gonna meet Sanji again and treat the whole, and it's gonna be a thing where she's gonna initially treat the whole thing like it's the first time they've met, and through there we're gonna see Pudding still having like that lingering regret about her wiping away his memories of her, and eventually it will lead to maybe Sanji eventually regaining his memories of her, and maybe them like falling in love again to some degree. I don't know, but it feels like this is where it just feels like that's where this needs to go right now. I don't know for sure, but it feels like it. With all that being said, let's talk about the whole situation on Egghead Island, where we get a whole bunch of reveals all at once. Starting off with the whole conversation between Bonnie and the Straw Hats, definitely left me with an uneasy feeling, in the sense where at some point or another she is going to learn the reason Kuma did what he did, what was to kind of protect the Straw Hats. And in knowing that, I'm not entirely sure what her reaction is going to be when that happens. Like, just the fact that she doesn't know that at all gives off the vibe that this little alliance they formed will pretty much break down from the moment she learns that, yeah, that Kuma did sacrifice himself, who he is, in order to help save the Straw Hats. And on top of that, though, like there's also the huge reveal that Dragon and Vegapunk actually know each other, or are acquaintances at least. So that in itself already proves there's more going on in terms of Kuma signing his life away, and especially adding to that with Bonnie's admission of him being one of a special group of people. There's some Void Century shit going on now. I think I'm not even gonna make a guess as to what Kuma is at this point, because it's gonna. I'm sure it's going. I think at best, maybe Kuma is one of the original Prince 20 Kings who helped form the world government. That's probably what she means. But it's like, what else is there another meaning behind special people? But yeah, I'm gonna mostly wait to see how that plays out. But okay, just from the fact that knowing that there's probably some Void Sentry shit going on here and build up with this chapter, it makes me wonder just how much Vegapunk knows of the Void Sentry, and even Dragon himself, since they both know Kuma. But I think because the first thing that pops in my head is that if Vegapunk had done so much experimenting on Kuma, and maybe they shared conversations with each other about Kuma's knowledge about the Void Century, it does make me think that this also if Vegapunk has knowledge, it could explain how he himself is known as such a genius, because in some form or another, I think all the technological advancements he's made has probably come from Kuma, and that knowledge of the Void Century, but has from what we've seen thus far of the kind of advancements he's made for the government and for the Navy, I imagine that Vegapunk himself has also kept, at least, and from what we see just the Vegapunk Island itself, it seems to be the case that Vegapunk has actually kept a lot of the technological advancements, like pretty much a lot of the technological advancements, like pretty much hidden away from the government and from the Navy, and only sharing what he feels is safe enough in order to give them, but in order to share with them, and just like kept all the rest on their feet, and just or maybe the government is aware but just overlooked it up until now because things hadn't reached the point they are now in the world. But yeah, just in general, it's like it's going to be interesting to see how much Vegapunk and Dragon know. Also, on top of I just gotta say, the more we explore Egghead Island, the more I love the aesthetic of it. Like I said before, but there's a little bit of Punk Hazard aesthetic in there, but much more of that whole futuristic tech design, which really makes it stand out as a place you might truly find someone like Vegapunk to live. Of course, we also get to, of course, with this chapter, we also get to see a little bit what the Straw Hats look like, young and old, and old Luffy is just hilarious. He's like everything I imagined he would be as an old guy, but and like obviously with Jinbei being young again, he looks kind of like how he looks in his SBS photo, but yeah, in his SBS caricature, which isn't too shocking, but it's like, yeah, I like how we get to see, we don't get to see them as kids a lot, so I'm glad we get to see it that way. Now, I do want to talk about I do want to take a little bit of a subversion here and talk about the Battle of Law versus Blackbeard, because there's two things I really like about this fight. The first is how it does show Law and his crew taking advantage of the fact that, yes, for as strong as Blackbeard and his crew have become, it is also true a good portion of that strength does come from the power of the Devil Fruit. And with that comes the universal truth that the sea is just as much your enemy as any other pirate. So seeing Law take advantage of that simple weakness adds a great little dynamic to the fight. And even more so than that, I also like how we actually get to see Law's crew take a more active role in the fight, because I'm not gonna lie, post Sabaody, they felt like kind of just like spectators, cheerleaders more than anything else. But here, we actually do get to see them engage in combat, showing history and personal connections aside, there are reasons as to why Law recruited them, and that they do have some semblance of skill outside of helping to pilot the sub. They do have a purpose in actual combat, and just generally seeing them take a more active role in the fight is honestly just fun to see. Like that's one thing I will never take away from One Piece, is that when the time comes, Oda really takes advantage of the dynamics for a fun fight. And yeah, through seeing Vegapunk 01 communicating with Dragon, this feels like we're about to get a huge lordom about the Void Century. Like, assuming Oda isn't gonna dick tease us more, like that's the one thing I worry about with how this chapter ended, is that Oda sets something up like this, he always kind of dick teases us and just completely moves away from the conversation. And that is more than likely to happen here. I wouldn't be surprised if it does. But it does also make me think that he is also kind of, but with the idea that he seems to also be hammering home the idea that Vegapunk is going to die by the end of this arc, it also makes me wonder if 01 is actually the real Vegapunk, and if this might be like also setting up for Luffy and the crew to meet Dragon face to face soon, because just with all the setup we get between just that little bit of setup we get with Vegapunk and Dragon, it does feel like we are moving forward with the whole Void Century stuff, regardless of what happens from here, whether we actually learn anything about it or not, and it also with it, there's also sort of the idea that we might be meeting. That Luffy and the crew might be meeting Dragon face to face soon, because I've gotten the feeling just from this little conversation that Dragon has kept secrets from Robin, whether that was willingly or at Robin's request. But this whole conversation with Vegapunk already has the vibe like there are things that maybe Dragon should have told Robin. I mean, just the fact that Dragon and Vegapunk are acquaintances proves that to me, and. Like, I think whatever information Vegapunk passes on to Dragon is what Dragon is going to tell Luffy and the others. I think that's pretty much how this is going to work. But, yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. From on Twitter, Analyst Crunchyroll. Be sure to notification bell, the subscribe button, and just share it around, guys. Dark Knight of Anime, signing off. Later, everyone.